Welcome back to the Weekly Sports Guide podcast for episode 4 and the special of the week. We're going to be talking all things hockey. I have a special guest, my girlfriend Avalon. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So we're going to talk all things hockey. You love hockey.
I am excited.
Hockey is your favorite sport.
It is.
Who would guess?
No one.
No one. I would guess you love the Rangers. So.
That's like the one thing you know about me. So.
Oh wow! Throwing shots at me. But season started 2 days ago. So we saw a couple of games, some questionable games, let's just say like some blowouts, unexpected blowouts, especially like last night. Stuart Skinner screwed me in fantasy football, fantasy hockey.
He allowed in 6 goals.
He did not last the whole game. I hit drop like midway through the game because he allowed 5 goals. And granted, goals against the goalies don't affect them. I just decided to cut him because he allowed 5 goals.
He allowed in 6 goals for a score of 6-0
Move.
against the Winnipeg Jets.
Hey, Hellebuck.
He's actually had a solid game. He's actually a very underrated player, which is part of the reason why I did draft him in the fantasy draft. Because there's so many big-name players that came from Winnipeg, and he, over the last few years, he has become one of those stars, but he's not like widely talked about, so people don't know much about him. So I wanted to prove like that he is talented. He deserves like a huge contract. He's great. He's a great all-around player. He plays well for Winnipeg. He hardly has...
Is he a free agent after the year?
In, like, the next few years, he got in free agency.
Because, like, I know the big free agent goalie next year is Shesterkin, and he just rejected an $88 million deal, which would have made him the highest-paid goalie, which would have beat out Price from a couple of years ago when they signed with the Canadians. And Swayman's actually ranked 4th. It's actually less of what Price got. Price is still the highest paid goalie in the league.
I'm saying that he would have a bigger contract than Swayman.
Oh, I know. But the only thing that's kind of messed up with the Rangers was the whole now with him holding out. Swayman waited till literally 3 days before the season started, signs this contract, and now Shesterkin gets an 8-year, $88 million, something like that, which would have been $11 million a year AAV. But no, we're going to decline that, which now makes, if you're a Rangers fan, kind of nervous because now he's going to sit there and saying, Swayman sat there for the whole offseason, didn't get his contract extension to the end, and held out and took $8.25 a year over 8 years. Linus Ullmark just signed a 4-year, $8.25 without even playing a single regular season time on ice for the Senators.
We were both surprised about that one.
Jake thought it was a good move. My roommate Jake, he does Talking Sports. Jake, go check him out. Quick little shout. He better shout me next time. This is the second time I shout him out. So I know he watches my episodes. He's gonna finish. He's gonna see this. So Jake, I know you're gonna be watching this at some point. Shout me out.
He's probably laughing on.
He probably will be laughing. But what was I saying? What was my point?
Swayman's contract.
Oh, yeah, Swayman's contract. I always lose track. But I was even telling, like, I know me, you, and Jake were having this conversation, and I was like, what's going to hold him out next year from holding out to the end and then making you guys pay up $12.5 million for a guy and making the highest paid goalie in the league because Price is getting paid, what, $11.5 million a year? No, it was $10.5 because the Shesterkin deal would have been the biggest deal, which was 11. So, and Price, I don't even think he plays anymore. I think he does. I think he's just a backup now.
Yeah.
Because I forgot who played last night, but I can't think of his name. It's Sean something. I can't think of his last name, and I'm sorry, Sean. So if you ever occasionally somehow watch this, the Canadians, I'm sorry because I'm looking you up. I'm gonna say your name. I'm gonna give you some respect.
That's a question if you can pronounce it.
That's the other thing. Don't get mad at me. Goalies. Let's see. It's Sam. Oh, it's Sam. That isn't even my fault. It's actually Sam Montembeault. I don't know how you pronounce it right. Montembeault. I am sorry. Oh, Monty Bolt.
Montembeault.
That's what I just said. Montembeault.
There you go.
All right. So. Weird awkward pause. I'm gonna cut that little part out right there. But yeah, like we're gonna kind of talk about. We'll continue talking about the Shesterkin deal that should have been down. I know you being probably the biggest Rangers fan known. You probably are the biggest fan of the Rangers out of at least everyone I know that is a Rangers fan. And
you only know one other person, so it's a
Jake.
low bar.
And Callie, she's also
and Natalie,
and like
that group.
2 other people, but like
some pickings.
But like, do you think he's worth the 8-year, $88 million deal they gave him, or should they give him a less of a deal?
I do think that he is worth it, but I also think that he has to prove himself, because for as long as I've been watching him, which has been for a while, he has had one great season, and then the next season right after that, he's okay. Like, he wasn't the player that he was in the last season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't exactly know what happened to him, but he goes from having one great season to a pretty inconsistent one. He does sometimes letting goals that he shouldn't have allowed, because I've seen him make stops on the same plays. Because when you shoot the puck, there's also like very limiting things that you can do. So it's not like, it's like practice.
Coming from my experience as a goalie soccer, the goal for a soccer ball is a lot bigger than one for a puck, and a goalie pretty much fits that whole goal, especially with all the padding.
Shesterkin is a very tall guy, so he fits the goal pretty well.
Like, but you've seen also like even the shorter guys like Swayman and all them. Once you throw 8 pounds of pads on them and they're all padded up, they look like they're like.
Oh, they look tall.
Even when they're 6'2", they look like they're like the most jacked human being. They look like they're the Rock.
I mean, they're on skates, so it does add some height.
Sure, you also get added 2 inches, and then if you have like guys like Nikita Zadorov, who are already like 6'4", come like 6'6", and you're like, Andre's already 6'4" or 6'6", and he's like 6'8", and he's 6'6" in skates, and he's a goalie, so he's pretty much the goal. And he's not no like tiny guy either. He's you got a ton of muscle.
I think he can't be a contender for the Vezina Trophy.
He's the best goalie. He's one of the best goalies in the league. Him and Sergei Bobrovsky are trying to take that top tier spot.
Buck is up there in the conversation. Shesterkin, he has won it before, but I can think if he plays well this season, like the season he had last season, where the Rangers made it to the East Conference Final, I do think that he would be a contender for the Vezina Trophy.
Because Hellebuck's actually won it twice, 2020 and 2024. Shesterkin was 2022. We had Lance Ullmark for the Bruins at the time in 2023. Now he's with the Senators.
They play tonight.
They do. I wonder who they play.
They play one of my teams.
Vancouver?
No, Vancouver played last night.
But sometimes they're playing tonight, like the Penguins are playing tonight.
I know it's not Vancouver.
Let's see. NHL scheduled tonight. Scheduled for October 9th.
I think it's Florida.
Ottawa. Thursday, October 10th. It is Montreal at Bruins, Kings at Buffalo, Florida at Senators.
That's going to be a good game.
Yeah, for Florida.
Hey, you get to see Ullmark as a Bruins fan. You get to see him on a different team. But I know you do wish women the best. No.
I wish Swayman the best. Obviously, I wish Swayman the best. He's behind my line.
Swayman, even Ullmark, even though I do think that he should have stayed for the Bruins, because I do think that he had a lot more to show.
Well, we traded him because, one, we had to pay either him or Swayman. They wanted to stay younger, so they kept Swayman. Obviously, they wouldn't pay 2 goalies $8.25 million a year.
Question with the contract. Why didn't he take the contract?
Well, we actually got the contract we wanted to give him. We were going to give him 65, so we bumped up by $1 million. He wanted 70, so we ended up getting him at where we wanted him, which is the clean, almost middle. Probably like $1 more million would have been the perfect middle, but we got him where we wanted him. I think it would have been hard for the Bruins, especially giving out a contract like that to Swayman and then giving a 4-year half of that to a guy like Ullmark, where they traded him for Korpisalo. I know he didn't have the best first game
Have you seen his first game?
We watched it together. Obviously, Montgomery blames the defense.
What are your thoughts on that as a Bruins fan?
I'm going to say what the coach said. It's definitely up to guys in front of him. You can't let people like constantly behind because Corpusalo can only save X amount of shots. And the moment he's going from here and have to switch all the way to this side with no help, it's going to be a lot harder to block some shots because even though he did try to,
it's not up to the goalie to block them shots. It's up to the players.
But save the shots. Yeah. Like even on the goals he had, you could see he tried to save it. Like he turned around, he threw his arm out, threw his leg, tried to throw his body towards it. It just wasn't enough because no one in the defense were in front of him. McAvoy was either trailing, Zadorov was either trailing. All these players that you have on defense, Hampus, Lindholm, are trailing, and obviously you have your wingers and you have your center, and they're coming from even probably farther than that. And the Panthers were just too fast in that game. The Bruins are somewhat of a fast team.
They are fast, they are aggressive, but I don't think that they have the depth level that the Florida Panthers have. And that's why you guys...
I think the only thing was like we would keep the puck in their zone. Like we would have it in their zone. And then...
You played the game of the Panthers. You didn't figure out the game that you wanted to play with the Bruins.
Well, the thing was Boston was keeping it in their zone. They would get into their zone, and they would keep it there for a while. And then they would get that one, shot. It would get blocked, and, one of the Panthers players, whoever it was, if it was Boquist, if it was Chuck, whoever it was, would hit it. Yeah. They'll just try to get it out of the zone. Next thing you know, it just gets past the defenseman, and one of them one of the Panthers players got in between, found the puck, and then they got past. So obviously the Bruins were playing their game. It was their game just wasn't at that moment good enough. I think if they had the defense playing well, I think it could have been a completely different story, and the Panthers could have had a spoiled night on their trophy thing, but also Bruins suck game one, so it never goes in the Bruins' favor game one. I don't think I've seen them won in game one in 2 years.
I am a little confused about what you said because you said that you were blaming the defense and the players that were on the ice, but you kept mentioning Korpisalo's reflexes.
Well, I was just saying Korpisalo.
Are you blaming Korpisalo's reflexes?
No, I'm saying Korpisalo was trying to stop him. There's because. Also, you see him trying to stop it, but it's hard for him to stop every shot when it's going from him to have to change his whole body to go get it because the defense isn't there to help.
That's an easy fix. You just push on the skate.
But he was trying to do that, but obviously they were too quick. The puck was getting there too fast, and I'm gonna blame the defense on that because the defense, if they were there, could have possibly interrupted the pass or gave it an extra second for Korpisalo to move his body because even every goalie's gonna have a hard time stopping every single shot because for a while Korpisalo he allowed 2 goals in the first period, but he played well in that first period.
He did.
He played every time he had when the defense was there, he played really well, and that was the Korpisalo everyone knew before he went to the Senators last year. Then obviously struggled because he had no defense. They were having team issues, but obviously now they got Linus Ullmark, who at the time of making the trade was an upgrade, but we don't know until officially tonight and the rest of the season how it plays out. Obviously Korpisalo is the backup, so Swayman's going to play majority of those games. He's going to probably play 80. Tonight? Yeah, it's going to be Swayman tonight. I think they'd rather have him play at home as his first game back just because the fans are going to be behind him.
But why would you let Korpisalo play out there when you have a goaltender like Swayman?
I think they wanted Swayman to get one extra day of practice under his belt. And I think with the first game being home for him, I think would just help getting back in the...
It shouldn't matter if it's home or away.
I think...
That doesn't make that...
But I also think they're also preparing for Korpisalo to play. And I think it would have been a bad move to just say, hey, Korpisalo, you've been practicing the last 2 weeks for this Panthers game. You're going to sit because Swayman came back. I think it was also Jim Montgomery being, hey... You practiced for this game for 2-3 weeks now. You've been preparing to be the starter for this game. We're going to give it to you. Because it would be a bad move for the Bruins to do, hey, Korpisalo, I'm sorry you practiced for the last 3 weeks, but you're not the starter this week, today. I think it was more of a, hey, you prepared for this. I'm going to give it to you because you prepared for this game. Because Swayman was out dealing with his contract. Obviously, Swayman was doing his stuff to get in game shape. Obviously, he was working out. He was practicing on his own ice. He was doing all that stuff. He was working with trainers and stuff like that. But I think it was just more of hey, Korpisalo, you've been practicing, you were here, you were playing, you were getting ready for this game. We already announced you as the starter for this game. I'm not going to take that back. Korpisalo, I'm going to give you a shot on opening night. You're going to play against the Panthers. Obviously, if you're a fan looking on the outside, didn't watch the game, you would say Korpisalo played horrible. Why didn't they play Swayman? I thought it was the right move to play Korpisalo.
I thought so too.
I think if they were playing at the same time, like if the Swayman deal got done 2 weeks ago and they're both preparing for this team and they played Korpisalo because I don't know why, they just chose to play Korpisalo, then at that point could be a confusing decision making at that point. But since he prepared for so long, I think they were like, you know what, Korpisalo, you deserve the shot. I already announced you the start. It'd be like if the Rangers had this next year with Shesterkin.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Quick's been preparing for game one. Mm-hmm. And Shesterkin doesn't sign until like 4 or 5 days before the season starts. And you already said, like, hey, the Rangers are playing the Bruins game one.
Yes.
Jonathan Quick's going to be our starter versus the Bruins. Then 2 days later, Shesterkin signs this 8-year deal, $90 million. Let's say it was the deal, right? So they pay him that. Oh, well, no, Shesterkin's our starter. Well, now if I'm Quick, if I'm that backup guy, you already announced me as a starter. Why should I play? Now it's like, I want to play. You told me I'm the starter. I've been preparing. This guy has signed his signed his deal. Hasn't been in training camp. Obviously, I know Shesterkin's probably doing it. Obviously, Quick and Shesterkin are probably friends. They're on the same team. Like, but it's like one of those things. It's like, hey, I've been preparing for this. I'm ready for this moment. You announced me the starter. All you're gonna do is kind of cause tension. So obviously, like in the same situation next year, Quick would be the starter week, the first game.
I do think that would lead to a different result than the Bruins, though.
I think it was just a little bit different. Obviously, the Bruins brought in. Obviously, we don't know what the Rangers are going to do next offseason. Yeah. We also even know what's going to happen in come April and June when the Stanley Cup final happens. We don't even know if the Rangers could be there. The Rangers could be hosting up a trophy. But it's like, also this year, the Bruins also made a few moves. So there's a couple new players on this roster.
They signed 2 people
during
free agency.
But there were 2 pieces for them that were big.
It's kind of arguable that you did not need Zadorov. You needed Lindholm more.
Oh, Lindholm was their first priority, I think. And then, so Don Sweeney, if anyone would know, I'm a Bruins fan, and I do not like Don Sweeney. Don Sweeney will probably watch this and be like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm just going to say this. There were so many times you could have brought back pieces. We've had Taylor Hall leave. We had Dmitry Orlov leave. We had Tyler Bertuzzi leave. We had a great2 years ago. Two years ago.
Pat Maroon last year.
Oh, we had Pat Maroon last year. But let's go back to 2 years ago. They had probably the best roster in the NHL. They were the dominant team that year, and you blow it in the first round to the Florida Panthers. And
I think that they had the best season in NHL history.
It was the best season in NHL history. They scored the most points. That was a historic season that no one came prepared for.
But why did you choke to the Panthers? That's the question.
I don't know the explanation. That I could not explain that to you. That is not. As a fan, I know I've seen this. I'm kind of more leaning towards being more like an NHL fan than just being one team fan, because obviously
I'm secretly converting to the
I'm slowly liking 2 teams now. Bruins will always still be one of my favorites because I grew up watching them. I chose to watch them when I was a kid. And then obviously when coming back to hockey, I started watching some Rangers, so I'm starting to like the Rangers.
Last season, you watched the postseason with me, like playoffs, and you were rooting for the Rangers. So.
And so it's kind of like I'm kind of starting to like 2 teams. I know obviously people out there, well, it's being a bandwagon.
Who is your favorite Rangers player?
Ooh, probably Panarin.
You just liked saying Brandman.
Brandman is fun. That's a good nickname. I also like Keandre Miller.
He's solid on defense.
Watching him last night, he looked really good.
The first season that he got signed, he was in the same draft year as Alexis Lafreniere.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to say that he did more for the Rangers than Alexis Lafreniere did in the first year. But now, looking back at it, Lafreniere has been developing for as long as he's been on the Rangers to become a really solid player and solid piece.
To go back in my little rant I was having before all that, but the thing is like the Bruins, everyone always asks, like, when's the window of the Bruins closing? It closed 2 years ago. That was the year they should have solely ran through that playoffs, won the Stanley Cup, could flip off everybody in the world and went, see, this is what happens when you build a team. And then what ends up happening is Don Sweeney, that free agency, has Orlov being a free agent. Yeah. He has Bertuzzi become a free agent. And Bertuzzi even came out saying he wanted to stay in Boston. So that's the issue. And it's like, you don't pay people. And then finally last year I was like, okay, you let Bertuzzi walk, okay, fine. I wasn't really happy about that at all.
Bertuzzi's playing really well, though.
I know. That's why I wanted to keep him. I would have kept Orlov.
Even without Boston, he's been playing well.
Yeah, I know. Dmitry Orlov, he was a really good defender for us.
Pat Maroon, even though he was.
Well, Pat Maroon was a deadline move this year, so
he wasn't on the team last year, but even when
he was on the team for half the season last year, and then we let him walk. He was good. We acquired someone else at the deadline. I completely forgot who it was. But like going into last offseason, it was a whole different change. Bergeron retired, so Zacha, who's better as a forward on the left or right side, depending on where Pasta wants to play. Had to play center, so our whole line had to change. And then
looked a little weird. Like it didn't look like he was entirely comfortable there.
And then at the deadline last year, they had a deal for Elias Lindholm because the Vancouver Canucks, I forgot who they were going after, had a trade deal agreed to.
Wasn't it?
I forgot the center. I forgot what team he's on. He's still on the same team. I just can't think who they had a deal done, and then that team that they agreed with backed out, which let them to keep Lindholm. And then obviously by the time the offseason came, everyone in the NHL, every fan in the NHL knew Elias Lindholm's going to Boston.
Yeah.
That deal was basically signed in stone 2 years ago.
Yeah. That's what I was telling you.
And then Nikita Zadorov, that move kind of came out of left field.
I think that
Don Sweeney came out. The reason why he signed him is he wanted to make sure he can keep that defense set, because we did lose Heinen in the offseason.
Yeah.
He went to Vancouver.
Whose fault is that?
Well, so I don't think he wanted to keep Heinen anyway.
But Heinen did a lot for you, so you guys lost an essential piece.
It was just one of those moves that was like the only one that kind of confused me, because like obviously I'm not paying him this money, and I've even told Avalon because I think she already knows the player I'm about to say. There was a guy in free agent that we had as a free agent that I really wanted to keep because he's a very solid player. He could have been a perfect line 2 guy, and that was Jake DeBrusk. But obviously, I'm not paying him.
He went to Vancouver, if anyone didn't know.
I'm not paying him $6.25 million a year. He's not worth that. I would pay him like $3.5 just because.
What do you mean he's not worth that?
He's not worth $6.5 million. Or $6.25. I think he's worth around $5.
I'm gonna say 6.
I just think it was a little bit of an overpay because he hasn't really broke out.
Name one NHL player who has not gotten overpaid.
That is true. Everyone tends to get overpaid. I only say overpaying people is if you're the hometown team. Like if the Rangers were keeping Zibanejad and they want to overpay him, I'm perfectly fine with that. But
he
like,
likes Zibanejad.
True. But like those moves make no sense.
Yeah.
If you're a team like Florida, if you want to overpay for like Brandon Montour last year, this past offseason, if they overpaid him, I wouldn't have cared because you know what? There's no hometown discount half the time. Like Connor McDavid might be the only player. Maybe McKinnon, Zibanejad or Panarin might do it. Pasta probably would do it.
Kreider's up there.
Yeah, but they'll like give a hometown discount to the team because one, like all those players want to stay with their teams. Like
Kreider's been on the team since he got drafted.
He got drafted in 2009
as
the 19th overall pick. Now he's been here. He's probably one of the greatest Rangers of all time. But
so
it's like
Lundqvist.
Lundqvist might be the greatest player.
Yeah,
he's the greatest goalie of all time.
Yeah.
And then you have obviously Wayne Gretzky, who's the greatest player of all time. And then, but like, other than that, it's like there's so many moves that the Bruins could have made that could have made this team be great, be fighting for a championship last year. But that's kind of it. Let's get into some predictions. So obviously the season just started, so we don't know. I think we kind of know who kind of going to consistently be in the playoffs. Obviously, like the Rangers, the Panthers, the Edmonton. As long as they don't have what they played last night, they should make the playoffs.
It was also like night 1.
Dallas.
Also, credit to Hellebuck. He was just a good goalie.
Yeah, Dallas is another team. Boston always consistently makes it. They made it 8 straight years.
Vegas has
Vegas
made
is
it
gonna
in the
make
last few
it.
years.
So if you really think about it, so we just named what, like 7 teams: Bruins, Rangers, Panthers, Dallas, Edmonton. I said Vegas. Hurricanes. Carolina
They
makes
have
it.
been good.
They've been consistently making. They were really good last year. Also, they played the Rangers.
They're a very aggressive team. Like, they go fast. They're aggressive. They have a lot of hits.
The only thing I remember when me and you were watching the playoffs last year was the one thing we kept saying about them though was that they didn't generate enough offense.
Yeah.
Because they're too aggressive. Yeah. Because there's a difference, like, because like obviously we're gonna talk about who our surprise teams are gonna be in the playoffs.
I think that by Carolina being so aggressive, I do think that they are overcompensating for something, and that was it.
I think if they slow down their game a bit, obviously you still want to keep the speed, you still want to attack.
Carolina has always been like known to be like a fast, aggressive team. Like they go out swinging like every single time, even though they know that they're probably going to lose to a team. It's the same thing.
But it's like, I think if they slow down on offense. Defensively, if they want to attack...
Defense are solid.
If they want to attack on defense, charge at people, they want to hit somebody, get that puck back, I think offensively, they could be way better if they slow it down. But they're definitely going to make the playoffs. So I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to even pick a team too.
Okay.
Who's going to be your surprise playoff team this year?
I can actually see the Nashville Predators being a surprise team because they picked up 3 key pieces in free agency in Marchessault, Stamkos, and Brady Shea from the Carolina Hurricanes. Brady Shea used to be a New York Rangers player. He is very aggressive. He played a very physical game. He moves the puck well. He just doesn't shoot that much. But you have shooters in Stamkos and Marchessault. So I don't think that's going to be that big of a problem this year.
For me, my surprise team is actually going to be it's going to be a little bit of a reach. It's going to be a little bit of a distance. But I just have a good feeling about this team. The Seattle Kraken.
They have been good.
I like the way they are. They are also a new team. They've
been in the league for like 3 years.
Yeah, it's
3, 4.
3 years, I believe. I think it came in 2022. I could be wrong. It could came in somehow last year, and no one remembers.
I thought you were gonna say Utah Hockey Club.
I'm gonna talk about them in a second.
Okay. Hey, you never know. They
joined in.
The Utah Hockey Club might go on a run.
They came in 2021, so it's been 3 years. Yep. They're going into their 4th season as a team. But I like the moves they made this offseason. I like the Montour move. I know he hasn't done anything, but it's only been 1 game. Obviously, I'm not going to bash him for 1 game.
One thing that was actually very impressive for the Seattle Kraken was in the 2nd season in the NHL franchise, they did make it to the playoffs.
So they've been in the playoffs recently. Obviously, they missed it last year. I just have a feeling because I feel like that Montour move, right now it seems like it's not working out.
Montour was a big piece.
Because he was huge for that team last year in Florida.
He's still trying to figure it out. He's trying to find his place on the team.
I think overall they are...
He's going to find his game eventually. It's just a matter of time.
I think it's just going to be over time, but I think it's just that team's good enough they can make a playoff. I'm not going to say they can make a playoff run. I'm just thinking they're going to make the playoffs. They're my surprise team.
They have a new captain in Jordan Eberle. He's the 2nd captain in the Kraken's franchise history.
Yeah. And then for my other, my just surprise team kind of, I wanted to say Utah Hockey Club. I don't think they're going to make the... I don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
They played better in Utah than they have consistently in Arizona.
I think there's one thing, when teams move from one place to another and they're either a struggling franchise, I think it just tend to see new fans, new place.
Energetic.
And it gives them more of an energy. Utah, I actually was confused by the move, but watching that game, they
played so well.
Those fans are very energetic.
They were buzzing. Players feed off the energy of the fans, and the fans didn't let them down.
So now we talked about surprise teams.
Yes.
What team is going to miss the playoffs and disappoint fans?
That's a great question.
If I'm gonna pull up the teams,
doesn't get injured this year, if he gets injured again this year, like the Devils missed the playoffs last year, I'm going to say the Devils, because he is very injury prone. He has been consistent with that.
I'm just looking at the playoff schedule from last year because I wanted to remember who exactly was in the playoffs because I already know who I'm
For
picking.
the Metropolitan Division, not much changes. It's pretty much just the top 4 teams in the Rangers, Carolina.
Devils somehow make it. Capitals made it last year.
Washington.
Capitals won in 2018. I remember
They
that.
did.
The Islanders made it too.
The Islanders have been pretty good.
For me, my team that's going to disappoint a ton of fans, and you actually might agree with my pick. Dallas, not Dallas.
Dallas is going to.
I meant Toronto. Because I looked right here.
Toronto's on the verge of making it. Not they were like that last year.
Because the one thing they played the Bruins last year, and I meant to say Toronto. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling through the playoff thing, and the first thing when I opened my eye for a second was Dallas. So I just read Dallas.
I can guarantee.
Oh, Dallas is.
Make it.
I already said they're one of the 6 teams already guaranteed to make. So it's not Dallas at all. Dallas is making the playoffs. They're too good of a team. If they don't,
Jason
then
Robertson's been really good for them.
if they don't make the playoffs, it's gonna be more of a surprise to me than it is gonna be a disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's Toronto. I know they went to 7 games against the Bruins, but it could have went in 6 if Linus Ullmark had a better game in Game 2.
The Canadiens also might disappoint fans because they have been.
I don't even think they made the playoffs last year.
In the more recent years, not last year.
They kind of just blown since 2 years ago. Who did Florida? Oh, the Florida played the Lightning last year. Lightning are kind of they're kind of staging out.
I think they're currently going through a rebuild.
So the one thing is Toronto to me.
They did trade Stamkos, which I didn't think made that much sense.
Because to me, Toronto, their team makes no sense to me. Austin Matthews is a good player.
They have big name players. They just can't put it together well.
I think obviously it could have been coaching. But I'm not going to blame coaching because everyone goes down and saying, "Well, our coach sucks." But I'm saying they always go down. Fans, especially probably in Toronto, go, "Well, our fans, it's our coach. Our coach sucks." Yeah, granted, their coach did come out saying teams make us beat ourselves. Sir, that's the point of the other team wants to beat you.
That's the entire point of the game.
But they also lost to a team who offensively, granted in the first few games, Boston did torch them offensively. They had 5 goals in game 1.
Lost, so you could play Toronto.
4 games, they scored 4 in game 2. Game 3, I mean. They scored 3 in game 4. But then they end up beating Toronto in game 7, 2-1.
I just want to say one thing. You guys intentionally lost the last game of the regular season so you could play Toronto.
Yes. I think, which for us is just the issue is we did not have a great offense last year.
No,
it was one centered.
You guys needed offense.
It was Pasta the whole way through. Obviously, Pasta still had a great year. He still had 110 points. He had 47 goals, 63 assists. So he was still doing
impressive.
He was still doing Pasta things. And Pasta is one of the best players in the league.
But it can't just be Pasta.
That's why you go out and you sign Lindholm, and now Zaka can go on the other side. And Zaka scored in the first game. Pasta did Pasta. Lindholm had an assist.
Yes, he did.
And Elias Lindholm had an assist. There's your first line. Your first line already scored 2 goals and has an assist already. McAvoy obviously scored.
Zadorov, even though it was his first game with the Bruins, he was very noticeable for his physicality.
That's what we brought him in for. But the thing was now, I think if you replay the series with the team we have now, this game goes maybe 5 games. I just don't think Toronto's that good to make it go 7. I think the reason they lucked out to go to 7 was because the Boston last year had a terrible offense. Obviously Zaka still did some things. Pasta did his thing. Yeah. It was a Pasta show, and if anyone had any doubts about David Pastrnak going before that season, he definitely just eliminated every kind of thought of him not being good because he solely carried the Bruins. And he carried the Bruins to a really good record for a team coming off probably the best season ever in NHL history.
Yeah,
but
how can you go from a season where you're the best in NHL history to the season you had last season?
It was due to the fact that you don't bring back anybody, and that's the issue. They brought back nobody from that team before.
Okay, but you also
other than the players that already under contract.
Pat Maroon did things for you.
Honestly, it wasn't enough. But to go back to what I was talking to is that Toronto They did nothing in that series other than what?
Yeah.
They scored their most goals they had was 3, and that was in game 2 where they beat the Bruins 3-2. Then they beat us 2-1, and then they beat Boston again 2-1 before losing 2-1. And the issue is they had game 7-1.
I know.
They had game 7-1, and Zacha tied the game, and then proceeds to start overtime, scoring another goal to seal the game.
I remember
which was his first goal in the playoffs in 2 years.
I was happy for him.
So it was like he played like single-handedly. The Bruins got carried by one player in Game 7. Pasta, I think he had the assist on the game-winning goal. But they solely lost Toronto to 2 players, Zacha and Pasta.
I know.
Swayman also was doing Swayman things. Obviously, he didn't allow more than 2 goals at all series.
He's been pretty consistent with that.
He has like a .955 save percentage in the playoffs. So it's pretty good for a goalie. But it's
really
just it's kind of hard for me to see Toronto make it again.
Yeah.
1, new coach, don't know how he's gonna coach. 2, they have good players on their roster like Nylander, Matthews, and Mitch Marner. Marner's a free agent after the year, so you don't know if he's coming.
Resign him.
But it's Toronto. We don't know what they're gonna do. There's rumors he might get traded at the deadline. I think if they're bad by the deadline, I could see Matthews, Nylander, and or Mitch Marner all get moved. Start a rebuild. Toronto needs to hit a rebuild. They're not.
Toronto hasn't been great for years.
But also they also haven't had a great coach in a while either.
Yeah. Their
Their last coach wasn't good. Like if you're a team like okay, you're the Rangers, you move off from one guy to the next.
We have done that.
Yeah, and you had a good coach. You went to an even better coach.
The
Bruins went from
Gerard Gallant to Peter Laviolette.
Yeah. And then, like, for the Bruins, they went from Bruce Cassidy, he left, and we signed Jim Montgomery, who also was a...
Bruce Cassidy is now the
Vegas coach, and he's playing... He's a really good...
In his first season, he won the Stanley Cup with them. So.
And we signed Montgomery, so we went from good coach to good coach. So we never...
slap in the face for, like, any Bruins.
Yeah, but it was like, okay, we didn't let him go and get some... guy who was a bad coach. You went out and got Montgomery, who they better re-sign because if you lose him, I don't know who else you're gonna get. Granted, but it's just gonna be hard to see the Maple Leafs come back. Obviously, like you said, the Lightning is starting to hit towards a rebuild. They lost Stamkos, but it's gonna be hard because obviously it's gonna come down to the top 4 teams in the Atlantic Division. Obviously, the top 4 teams in the Metropolitan. Obviously, the Devils were a good pick to disappoint. I seem like they disappoint their fans every year.
If Jack Hughes does not get injured, I don't think that they're going to but I do think he's so injury prone that something is bound to happen.
If they don't make the playoffs this year, I'm going to make a bold prediction. And Avalon, you're probably going to think this is bold. Okay. Jack Hughes is a good player.
Yeah, no.
We know. He's an all-star. Yep. When healthy, he's one of the best players in the league. He's very
noticeable.
He's fast. He has a similar play style to a guy like McDavid. He's very fast. Obviously, McDavid's like is Jack Hughes on crack. Yep. He's obviously like a way better version of Jack Hughes, but Jack Hughes plays a similar game too.
He's the fastest man in the NHL.
Yep, but Jack Hughes plays a very similar game.
Yes, he does.
I think if they miss the playoffs this year, Jack Hughes is healthy. I think next offseason they should trade him.
Why is that?
I think if you can't do it with this year, obviously with making moves at the deadline, because you're gonna have to make moves at the deadline.
Yeah.
Even with Jack Hughes, that team is not great. Roster-wise, it's not great. They finally got a goalie for the first time in like 5 years. They got Jacob Markstrom. I just don't think...
He has been good.
But I don't think that's going to be enough for them. Because
you can't rely on one goalie.
The one thing I noticed, when they last made the playoffs where they upset the Rangers, they beat the Rangers.
That was 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, that was when the Panthers
the first round of
made the finals, but they lost, and the very next year they win. But the one thing was, with that, and I noticed... in that series, because obviously I was with Jake, so I got to see some of it. Liam likes the Devils. Jake's a Rangers fan. Justin's also a Devils fan. And I was watching couple of those games, and I remember the Rangers went up.
We were up like 2-0.
You were up 2-0, and I remember saying this to Jake, and I was like, "You better be careful." And he goes, "Why? We're up 2-0. We're going to win the series." And I go, "Here's the thing. The Bruins are up 3-1, and I don't know if they're going to hold on to a lead because anything can happen in hockey." Speaking of Devil, they end up losing that series. Spoiler alert if you don't remember from 2 years ago. And I remember it went down to Game 7.
It did.
the Devils weren't a great defensive team.
No.
Honestly, the Rangers had issues that year.
I think that Jack Hughes outperformed the Rangers.
The one thing I noticed from that game by Game 7 was that the Rangers that season were slower than they were last year.
They got killed by speed.
I don't know if also kind of a mentality thing came into play because obviously the Rangers team was still really good that year. Yeah. I think part of it was, one, Jack Hughes just outplayed and outskated everybody. But two, I think it got to a point where you went 2-0, you went down, I think you got tied 2-2, and then I think you guys won, lost, right? Something like that.
Yes.
It was 3 wins to the Devils, 1 win for the Rangers, back to the Devils winning. But whatever how the series went, it came down to a point I think it came down to mental fatigue. And
I think that all the players were just tired. I feel like they kind of got like a little arrogant, like saying like, we had this in the bag.
I think part of the Rangers, I think some of the players gave up.
Yeah.
They felt like they lost the series and just like, you know, I'm ready to go to vacation. I'm ready to go home.
Part of that, and I feel like some of the players, like you can see it on the ice. Like they weren't ready. Like some of them kind of just played.
I think it was I think it was the same thing with the Bruins. They were like they had it in the bag, and then I think they got too tired because the Panthers came out with more energy.
They were fast. They came out with speed. They came out with aggression.
But
that's what killed you guys.
And then let's talk some awards. So we have the Hart Trophy, the Norris Trophy, the Vezina Trophy, and the Calder Trophy. Those are kind of the big awards that are given out. Also, we can go for the ones that most points.
Is a good one.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
But we're going to just talk about these 4. I think it'll be a little bit lighter, a little bit easier, kind of more fun. So who's your Hart Trophy winner?
Quinn Hughes might have a good shot at that one. So I'm gonna go Quinn Hughes.
I'm gonna go with a pick. I like this player. He's actually on my fantasy team. He has won it before. He won it in 2020. I'm gonna take Leon Draisaitl.
He's a good one.
I think with having a guy like Connor McDavid on your roster, I think Connor McDavid could obviously, he always has a chance. He won in 2023.
He did.
But I think if you're gonna choose somebody in,
it could be McKinnon, like Cale Makar, because
McKinnon won this past year.
Makar could also be a contender for that.
Quinn Hughes is obviously a good pick. Obviously, a defenseman wing MVP is a little bit tougher, but it can happen.
It can be done. It's been done before.
Yep. It's not like it's going to be the first time or the last time we ever see that happen.
It actually happens more commonly than you realize.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where it's like Leon Draisaitl is a huge piece, especially last year. I think teams are going to start focusing more on Connor McDavid, even though they have been doing that. I think after last year, what they saw what happened in the playoffs.
Collins can also be a contender.
Yeah. But the one thing is, like, I noticed that they're going to probably start doing...
Even him.
But one thing I noticed is that teams are going to start focusing on McDavid a lot more. They're going to start pressing him more because...
Well, he's a very dangerous player, like, when he's on the ice. He
but
basically
the issue was...
But...
They focused on him before.
That can also be an issue, like, with Pasternak. He's very noticeable on the ice, so they focus on Pasternak and they leave people open.
But the thing is with McDavid, the reason they're probably going to start, like, triplet teaming him... Maybe if they can get a chance throwing a big hit on him. Because last year in the playoffs, teams were double teaming him and they were still losing.
I know.
So there was a big difference. Obviously, they ended up losing in a Stanley Cup final, but that team they were facing was the Panthers. It wasn't like they're facing...
The Panthers just had more depth. They had more speed.
They were just
McDavid.
They were just
like,
ton of
all
players.
around better.
But Draisaitl is going to get the spotlight after that. So Leon Draisaitl is going to be my pick. The Norris Trophy. The Defensive Player of the Year award.
You're going to laugh when I say this. But Remy does a lot for the team. He's a very physical player. He has a lot of penalty minutes. He does a lot. He does hits. He does block shots. He does everything a player can ask for.
I'm going to surprise you with my pick.
Should I be scared?
He's another former winner.
Okay.
Roman Josi.
Josi.
Yeah, Josi.
He's good.
I botched his name. I botched a lot of hockey players' names.
I always have to correct him.
She always, I don't know, there's times where I say McKinnon, sometimes I say Mackinnon. I don't know why.
It's McKinnon.
And then I've been saying Marchand's name wrong. It's actually Marchand.
Yep.
So I've been saying his name.
He's French.
Yeah. But, like, obviously there's, like, guys like Quinn Hughes that can obviously say Pasternak.
He's American, so.
Pasternak, we actually say his name wrong, but he actually doesn't mind because it's very similar.
Then what is his name?
It's the R is it's more like Pasternak instead of the way we say it, but he's like, I don't care. He doesn't really care like how you pronounce it because it's so similar. He doesn't really mind. But for Roman Yossi, I'm gonna botch the name. I just feel like he can win it again. He's a really good defender in the league. He obviously won it a few years ago. But I think it's gonna be.
Quinn Hughes is also a contender.
Quinn Hughes can go back to back. Obviously, you can probably go back to 2023. Eric Carlson did it. Cole McCarr. Cale McCarr. I want to call him Cole. He just seems like a Cole to me. Adam Fox did it a few years ago.
He did.
So there's tons of players that can do it. Obviously, every defender.
Rugby bound to get it eventually. I know it.
Probably. If there's a hitting or getting the most penalty makes, he probably gets that.
That's fair.
But
that should be a reward.
It's just we have so many. But like Roman Yossi is gonna be a great pick for this spot, so he's gonna be mine.
He actually had more penalty minutes last year than he had time on the ice.
Who's your Vezina trophy winner?
Hellebuck is good. I can say Igor, he won it a few years ago, but if he plays similar to the way he played yesterday, he has a real shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say Hellebuck, just because people don't give him enough credit for what he does for Winnipeg Jets and Shesterkin.
I feel there's a couple players that can be up for this. There's guys like Jeremy Swayman who had a great.
A good one.
He had a great.
I was going to say Swayman too, but I knew you were going to say him. So.
I'm actually not picking him. You'll know who I'm picking in a second.
I can say Swayman is bound to have one in the next few
Swayman
years.
will definitely have one. He's one of the better goalies in the league. He obviously plays a lot different than some of these guys like Connor Hellebuck. He's more. He's like Hellebuck, Ottinger, Shesterkin. These are all big guys. So all these and Marco is also a bigger guy. Swayman's a lot different.
I don't think he's gonna win the Vezina in Ottawa because. I don't think the team doesn't.
It's got no. But I was just saying, but Swayman, he's a lot younger, so I don't think his time is yet. Maybe next year. Yeah. If he won it this year, I wouldn't be surprised.
Maybe within the next 2 years, I'm going to say that. I wouldn't be surprised.
He definitely has a chance this year.
Yeah.
This especially since the Bruins are now his team as the goalie. But I just can't. He's a guy who could possibly win it. Another guy's a guy like Shesterkin. Bobrovsky could also win it. Yeah. But my pick is going to be Jake Ottinger. I think the way he played last year, he could have won it last year. I think he's going to play a little bit better.
A little controversial opinion, but I do think that Bobrovsky should have won that instead of Hellebuck. Even though Hellebuck is a really solid player, you just can't not give it to Bobrovsky after winning the Stanley Cup.
But if you really think about it, Jake Ottinger and Bobrovsky could easily both won it last year. They both had great seasons. Those are your two top goalies in the league.
I remember that Dallas was not supposed to beat Vegas, but they won in Game 7. I think it might have been overtime or within a few seconds of regulation.
And then
I was surprised.
I think he's just gonna have another big year this year. So obviously I can see a Vezina trophy writing his name onto it. And for the college trophy, we both had the same pick for this, so I think I'll just release it. Macklin Celebrini, we both, before the show, agreed to this pick. There's not really many other players that are known, but Celebrini's going to get a lot more of a shot.
He's going to get a lot of recognition.
Because he's on a bad team. And it's San Jose's not great, so he's going to be the spotlight there.
But I do think that by signing Macklin Celebrini into San Jose, I do think that they are going to hit a rebuild within the next few years, and I just think that Macklin Celebrini is a kind of a symbol of hope.
There's a word that we did not talk about. There's a thing we did not talk about, and both of our teams have won this in the last 2 years.
The President's Cup.
Who's going to be the President's Cup winner this year?
Winnipeg Jets, maybe. I think that if they played as well as they played last night against Edmonton, they have a real shot. The Rangers might go on a two-peat because they played really well. It just looks like they've been playing with each other for years, which hasn't been the case. like, they do have most of the same players, but they played so cohesively. They played so well. They just find each other on the ice. It just looks natural. So I do think that they have a shot. Maybe the Bruins, like they had 2 years ago, but we all know how that turned out. So maybe Dallas, maybe even for the Panthers have a shot.
Probably going to be the Panthers.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
My pick is going to be a little bit of a surprise pick. The Edmonton Oilers. They made it to the finals last year.
They did.
They surprised a lot of players. Draisaitl and McDavid is the best duo you can possibly
Darnell
ever.
Morris, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is
But
up there.
if you want to just talk about a duo,
Yeah.
Draisaitl and McDavid are is a dominant force to be reckoned with.
So is for the Rangers. It's Zibanejad, Carter.
Yeah, but it's like you have
But
two.
those two aren't comparable, so it's like.
Because it's not like the Oilers have like, okay, these are two guys that mesh, like how like Zibanejad and Cryer mesh with, like they have a great relationship together. They have chemistry. Not just that Draisaitl and McDavid don't have the chemistry.
Yeah.
They're also two top tier guys in the league.
They've been playing for years.
They've been working with each other for years. But think about it. We talk about Draisaitl as a top 5 player.
Yeah.
McDavid's the best player in the league. Like you have 2 top 5 guys playing with each other without having an issue.
Those two are dominant. Like they're dangerous on the ice together. They always have like a goal.
And those two are always going to generate wins.
Yeah.
Am I saying they're going back to the Stanley Cup? No, but they could possibly happen. And talking about Stanley Cup, who is your Stanley Cup matchup, and then who's going to be the winner?
I want to say the Panthers, because I think that they have been like a dangerous team. Like we saw it last night, or like the 2 nights before. They literally beat the crap out of the Bruins. They played aggressive. They played fast, which I think ultimately is what they killed you. Also, the Bruins O-line was not good. So you guys need to work on that. So I think that is a culmination of it. And for the Western Conference, it could be Dallas. It could be the Vegas Golden Knights again. I think those would be 2 very interesting matchups because Dallas has also been extremely fast. Like, they play aggressive. So I think that both teams would bring the physicality. So.
And then who's your winner?
Probably Florida because they ultimately have more depth, and I just think that they're a little faster.
All right, so my pick. So who's my pick?
I don't know where you're
I was about to say it. Obviously, it's the Bruins not playing. I wanted to say it because it'd be funny. I'm going to actually pick a little more of a surprise. I do kind of agree with the same Western team. I do have Dallas there.
Yep.
I think Dallas is just too good. I think they're going to get their vengeance from last year into this year. But my Eastern Conference pick is not the Panthers.
Really?
I think they're going to get upset this year, and it's going to be surprising.
Who do you think they're going to be upset by?
It's weird. I just have a weird itch. They're losing in the first round of the playoffs.
To who?
That's the question. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be somehow be the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to upset the Florida Panthers because the Panthers are going to get cocky. But
I don't know.
my pick is the New York Rangers playing the Dallas Stars in the lights in Madison Square Garden for Game 1. That's going to be a fun matchup.
Who do you think's going to win?
There's a team out there in that matchup that wears white, red, and blue.
So the colors of the American flag.
The American flag. The United States soldiers. Obviously, I'm taking the rain.
It's the Hartford Wolfpack.
It's obviously the Hartford Wolfpack. No, it's obviously the New England Patriots. They're going to be playing hockey this year. If you guys didn't know, they're taking place for the Rangers. They're taking place for the Rangers. They're going to give the Rangers a year off to kind of rest for next year. So they're going to play a spot now. I'm just playing. It's going to be the New York Rangers. I just think talent-wise, I think they have a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think they're a little bit more.
Depth.
I think the depth's almost the same. I think it's just slightly more for the Rangers. I think you have a little bit more depth than the Stars do, but I think it's closer than like what the Rangers were last year to the Panthers or Panther was to Edmonton. It's just one of those things. It's just I can't see Dallas winning it this year, despite the fact that Jake Ottinger's probably gonna have a great series.
They have Jason Robertson. They have Rube Hintz, which
I-
are really solid key players.
I think
for
it's going to
them.
be a very low-scoring series. I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to be
I think it's gonna
like
be
3-2,
aggressive.
2-1.
I think it's going to be intense. I think they're going to go shift to shift.
So I don't think it's going to be what's it called? I just don't think it's going to be like one thing where we're going to see like a 5-2 game. I don't think it's going to happen. You have a great goalie in Andre. You have a good goalie in Shesterkin. Obviously, Shesterkin does have his little bit of flaws in the playoffs, but it's all right.
Every
It happens.
Flaws.
Everyone does
Yep.
does have something, or they have a bad game. I know Swayman's had bad games. I know
Shesterkin's
Mark
had
had bad games. I know
Ottinger has bad games.
Stuart Skinner's had his bad games. Stuart Skinner's a solid goalie.
Hellebuck
Bobrovsky.
has his solid bad games.
I know Bobrovsky had a bad game last year. But it's like one of those things that's like, I just can't see like I said before, Dallas winning. It's just, I think the Rangers are just too deep. So I'm going to leave it up with the question to you guys, to my fans, which is mostly just Jake.
Hi, Jake.
Hi, Jake. Who's your Stanley Cup matchup? Who's your winner? And I have another question, a little bit deeper question that we didn't answer. Is the President's Cup a curse? Until next time, that's all we got today. Thank you. See you again soon.